Carnivals 2025 continue to be celebrated in Latin America and the Caribbean as other hemispheres begin their own celebrations. In Palestine, Israeli occupation forces continue their ongoing siege on the West Bank city of Jenin and its refugee camp. And in Russia, the armed forces expelled Ukrainian troops from the Donetsk border. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR Studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. The Carnival of Barranquilla is a folkloric festival full of tradition and idiosyncrasy that mixes reality and fiction as iconic components of the Colombian Caribbean culture. The details in the report by our colleague Hernan Tobar.
In Colombia, one of the most representative events at the level of folkloric and cultural transcendence, and at the international level, is the Carnival of Barranquilla, declared cultural heritage of the nation in 2001 and masterpiece of oral and intangible heritage of humanity by UNESCO in 2003, an expression of identity of the Colombian Caribbean, whose historical records date back to 1829, generating an essence that is based on the construction from the popular.
Generando una esencia que se basa en la construcción desde lo popular.
It originated in this region of the country because it was there where they let the Afro people go out and make the party, and that is maintained. That is maintained with difficulties. So the rebellion consists in that, to overturn the order. That is, the poor can be king, the marginal woman can be queen. So, the established order is transgressed. And that is the extraordinary thing about Carnival.
This is an event that takes over the streets of Barranquilla, capital of the Department of Atlántico, which some have wanted to privatize, but which is maintained thanks to the annual work of cultural makers located in the popular neighborhoods of this city and that enrich with popular music, dances, and costumes, where you cannot miss the similar characters and cultural traditions that are iconic of both the region and the country itself, which complete the varied repertoire of this important folkloric and cultural event.
El variado repertorio de este importante evento folclórico y cultural.
The Carnival has represented all the Spanish influence that we have had during all these times, in addition to the indigenous customs, the customs of the Africans, all those customs of the people, and has been highlighted during all this time in our dances, in the artistic representations, in the masks, in all the idiosyncrasy of the people of this region, and everything that one represents through the dance, in all its musicality and through its musical instruments.
This carnival festival will begin on March 1st and will last until March 4th with the traditional Battle of Flowers, where the floats take the Via 40 and where the queen of this event throws flowers to the attendees. This act in turn is accompanied by cumbia and dance groups, where new rhythms of popular youth culture have been incorporated, but without leaving aside the Afro essence as a cultural component.
There are a couple of urban sounds that have managed to enter this theme of the carnival, such as Afro dance and champeta.
La champeta, desde etimológicamente, es un género que es traído desde...
A genre that is brought from the African continent. It comes from the 1600s with all this theme of black slavery. It comes with a type of music called sukus, all this kind of rituals that blacks did in the theme of slavery.
4 días de un despliegue cultural amplio.
These are days of a wide cultural display that shows the traditions and roots of a region that mixes the idiosyncrasy of the Colombian Caribbean people and the perception of reality and its transformation into art, which ends with the death of an iconic character that represents the soul and the enjoyment of the carnival that is mourned, veiled and buried, putting an end to this emblematic celebration.
Hernán Darío Tobar, TeleSUR, Barranquilla, Colombia.
We now have a short break coming up, but first we invite you to join us in our special coverage of this year's Carnival celebrations. Tune in to a special broadcast with Ms. Ron Robinson in the evenings for all the details of the day's events across different nations as people celebrate their cultural identity and history. Remember, in the evening, special coverage Carnival 2025 with Ms. Ron Robinson. We'll be right back after this very short break. Welcome back. In the West Bank, the city of Jenin and its refugee camp are still under siege by the Israeli army. Authorities report that at least 27 civilians have been killed and dozens wounded during Israeli assaults on the Jenin refugee camp in the siege that has been going on for 41 consecutive days. They also report that Israeli troops have used armored bulldozers to destroy over 120 houses. The Israeli occupation maintains a total blockade of the Jenin refugee camp, which prevents people there from returning to their homes. It has also been 35 consecutive days since the Israeli siege in the city of Tulkarem and its refugee camps. City authorities say Tel Aviv has threatened residents and gave a Sunday deadline to 7 families to leave their homes. Residents denounce Israeli forces are storming and destroying buildings to forcibly evict them. Palestinian officials say that in the resulting from Israeli aggression against the refugee camps, over 16,000 people have been displaced, most of them being women and children. And in Israel, some protesting ultra-Orthodox Jews have been arrested by the police for blocking a highway as they demonstrated against conscription into the Israeli army. Demonstrators represent the 1.3 million ultra-Orthodox Jews, 13% of Israel's population, who oppose compulsory conscription. The mobilizations come after Israel's Supreme Court unanimously ordered the government in June 2024 to begin conscripting ultra-Orthodox Jewish men into the army. In Ethiopia, the nation commemorates the 129th anniversary of the historic victory at the Battle of Adwa. The National Defense Forces began activities under the theme Adwa, Victory of the Black People, with the objective of honoring and promoting a sense of collective memory among Ethiopians. The event involves the community, government officials, community leaders, ambassadors from various countries, among others. On March 2, 1896, Ethiopians surprised the world by defeating the army of the invading Italian forces, which represented the first substantial defeat of a European power by African troops during the colonial period. And in Namibia, founding father and former President Sam Nujoma has been honored with a state funeral. The funeral was held this past Saturday at the Akar Heroes Cemetery, and it was attended by his family and several African leaders who described Nujoma as a man of principles who defended the African continent against colonialism and for having brought peace and stability to Namibia. Following his death, Nujoma's body was honored with a national send-off, and his remains were taken through 7 regions, including his own home village, Etunda, during a 21-day official mourning period. And Russian authorities reported a fire in a warehouse with plastic products in the Moscow region. The emergency ministry warned that the fire that started in the village of Bolshoye Bunkovo is spreading rapidly and has consumed an area of 7,000 square meters. The ministry also warned that the fire could not be controlled due to the quantity of flammable materials stored in the facility. Authorities assured that more than 100 brigades are participating in the work to control the fire. And the Russian army expelled Ukrainian forces from the Donetsk border. According to local authorities, the Russian army has successfully driven out Ukrainian forces from the village of Buldatskoye near the administrative border of the Donetsk People's Republic and the Zaporizhia region. It has also been reported that in operations over the last 24 hours, the Ukrainian army lost over 160 soldiers. Reportedly, Russian troops continue to advance to the west of Donetsk, that is the administrative border of the Zaporizhia district. And the National Electoral Council of Abkhazia announced the victory of Badra Kumba, who won the presidential runoff election with more than 54% of the votes. The Electoral Commission detailed that at least 54,954 citizens voted for Kumba as the first elected president of the emerging republic, while Adgur Atsimba obtained 41,708 votes. Electoral authorities also reported a turnout of 70%. In the United Kingdom, the country that left the European Union for lack of trust now has summoned for a European summit in London, the capital, to talk about unity around Ukraine. The meeting, which had been previously scheduled under a slightly different premise, suddenly changed its focus following the televised confrontation at the White House between United States President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who eventually was kicked out of the White House. All the leaders of the European Union have rallied around the Ukrainian president, except for the Hungarian Prime Minister. In the days leading to Sunday's summit, some members of the European Parliament had organized a meeting with U.S. expert Jeffrey Sachs, who has a clear recommendation for what he considered to be the end of the conflict. We now have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Subscribe to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Found your break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Ecuador, the number of fatalities following a landslide occurred in El Oro province, south of the country, has risen to 11 after the death of a child and an adult. According to the Risk Management Ministry, since early 2025, the country has experienced lots of downpour, floods, river overflowing, and landslides, which so far accounts for 11 people dead and over 72,000 people affected. The agency says they are keeping 6 of the 24 provinces under a red alert, being the coastal areas the most affected. So far, 12 temporary shelters have been set up, which are currently housing 511 people. And Venezuela rejected and described as false the accusations made by the president of Guyana, Irfan Ali, regarding the presence of Venezuelan vessels in the maritime zone of Guayana Esequiba. Through a statement issued by Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, Caracas described Ali as a Caribbean Zelensky who seeks to sow a regional conflict with the support of ExxonMobil and ultra-right-wing actors. In this regard, the government of Venezuela reaffirmed that the maritime zone of Guayana Esequiba is an undemarcated, disputed area and therefore does not belong to Guyana. It should be noted that after this fact, Venezuela will immediately request the convening of the Argyle mechanism, an instance that represents the spirit of the Geneva Agreement, the only valid pact to satisfactorily resolve the dispute of the territory in claim. And in the same context, through her social media, Venezuelan Vice President Delcy Rodriguez rejected the interference declarations of CARICOM after the organization supported the actions of Guyana against Venezuelan sovereignty over the territory of Essequibo, where she expressed third-rank bureaucrats of CARICOM behind the backs of the heads of government of this organization, support the Zelensky of the Caribbean, Irfan Ali, and endorse the plan of the U.S. Southern Command to attack Venezuela, while they disqualify themselves from serving as facilitators in this territorial controversy. The countries of the Caribbean are called by history to play a constructive role in this territorial dispossession, artificially created by ancient empires. They are in time to prevent our region, one of the few areas of peace in the world, from entering into a conflict to legitimize the energy voracity of ExxonMobil. Venezuela will never renounce its rights over the Essequibo and will assert all legal and diplomatic actions in its defense. And in Haiti, the authorities arrest gang members after intensified security operations in Port-au-Prince. Government authorities said that law enforcement agencies have intensified their operations in the Besdalmas area, where several arrests have been made. The Haitian National Police also reported that reinforcements were placed in metropolitan areas of Port-au-Prince in order to curb criminal activities. According to official data, the wave of violence by criminal armed groups led to the displacement of more than 6,000 people and numerous deaths. And in his yearly address to Congress on Saturday, Argentine President Javier Milei expressed optimism about an impending deal with the International Monetary Fund. This announcement comes after a tumultuous first year in office, marked by controversy and economic challenges. Milei emphasized that the new agreement would help replenish the central bank's dwindling hard currency reserves, supporting his broader economic reforms aimed at achieving long-term stability and reducing inflation. Milei's administration has been negotiating a new IMF program, which will be Argentina's third in recent years. The deal could provide additional funding, potentially up to $11 billion, to help Argentina lift its currency controls and stabilize its economy.
To fulfill these projects and the changes the Argentine people demand, we are moving forward with a deal with the International Monetary Fund to clean the balance of the central bank and leave once and for all the currency controls during this year. The first step in this trail is the historic opportunity to reach a trade deal with the U.S., an opportunity we had 20 years ago, and we've let it go, not taking advantage of the last economic boom on this planet. But to take advantage of this historic opportunity, we must be willing to be flexible, or even, given the circumstances, leaving the Mercosur, whose only achievement since its inception is making the Brazilian big industry businessmen richer at the expense of the Argentine people.
We have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. Also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.